What's up everyone, I'm Dan and thanks to Studio Aurum for the review code for Monster Crown Sin Eater on the Nintendo Switch systems. From the very start you can see what Monster Crown is going for. With its chunky pixel art, roaming monsters and turn-based battles, it immediately evokes memories of classic Game Boy era Pokémon. But while it clearly takes inspiration, Sin Eater also tries to carve out its own identity through darker storytelling, deep monster customization systems and a far more open-ended structure. The result is a game packed with ambition and genuinely interesting ideas, even if not all of them come together perfectly. You play as Asur, a young farm boy who dreams of becoming a monster tamer like his older brother Das. Things quickly spiral when Das becomes entangled with the oppressive Holy Order and its sinister ruler, leading Asur on a journey across Crown Nation that becomes far darker and more mature than you might initially expect. Some of the story beats genuinely caught me off guard. There are moments here that feel surprisingly grim for the genre, and the world itself often feels hostile and uncaring. Branching dialogue choices and NPCs' interactions help make the world feel reactive too, even if the writing quality itself can be inconsistent. There are times where the dialogue lands well and adds to the atmosphere, but there are moments when it veers into awkward or slightly cringe territory. Gameplay follows the familiar monster catching formula, but with enough twist to stand apart. One of the best changes is the removal of random encounters. Monsters roam around the overworld naturally, reacting differently depending on their temperament. Some flee from you, some stalk you, and others aggressively charge towards you. It makes the exploration feel far more alive, while also giving players greater control over combat encounters. The bait system is another neat addition, allowing you to lure out shy monsters or distract dangerous ones while exploring. It's a simple mechanic, but it adds another layer of strategy to traversal that works surprisingly well. Combat itself is solid, though it takes a while to fully click. Battles revolve around a rock paper scissors weakness system across multiple move types, with monsters possessing different resistances, abilities and move pools. However, the game doesn't always do the best job explaining these systems clearly. Early on, I often found myself confused about why certain attacks were effective, while others barely scratched enemies even when I thought I had the upper hand. It eventually becomes clearer once you notice visual cues and spend more time experimenting, but the game could have done a better job explaining this. The synergy bar system is a shared meter that fills when using actions and can later be spent to crown moves, boosting their effectiveness and sometimes adding bonus effects. There's a satisfying risk-reward dynamic to deciding whether to spend synergy immediately or save it for tougher fights later on. Unfortunately, like several mechanics in Sin Eater, teaching this was also non-existent, and I didn't fully appreciate the system until much later in the game. In fact, I kept wondering why I was able to use certain moves at times and not at others. The monster collection systems are where Sin Eater really separates itself from the crowd. With over 1,000 possible monster sprites through breeding, fusion and transformations, there's a crazy amount of experimentation available. The crossbreeding system is genuinely addictive, allowing you to combine monsters to create entirely new creatures with inherited traits, moves and stats. The game absolutely caters more towards players who enjoy stat management and deep optimization systems. If you love tinkering with builds, resistances and monster genetics, there's a lot to sink your teeth into here. If you prefer more casual monster catching adventure, the complexity and grind may become frustrating, and unfortunately there is quite a lot of grinding. Progression can become repetitive, especially when you're unsure where to go next. The game's open-ended structure is both one of its strengths and one of its biggest weaknesses. After a fairly linear introduction, Crown Nation opens up significantly, allowing players to tackle objectives in a loose order. While that freedom is refreshing, the lack of direction can leave you wandering aimlessly for long stretches. Visually, the game does an excellent job capturing the charm of old-school monster RPGs. The pixel art is lovely throughout. Battles especially look fantastic, with more detailed sprites and flashy attack animations, giving combat plenty of visual personality. The soundtrack is chiptune inspired music, which does a great job enhancing the atmosphere, shifting between energetic battle themes and more melancholic town tracks with ease. Combined with the environmental artwork, Crown Nation ends up feeling distinct and memorable despite its familiar structure. The inclusion of 3 difficulty options, Story, Challenge and Monster Crown, is also welcome. Story mode offers a more accessible experience, while Monster Crown mode significantly ramps up the tension with scarce resources and tougher enemies for players wanting a harsher survival style challenge. In the end, Monster Crown is a fascinating but uneven monster catching RPG. It's packed with creative ideas, deep customization systems and a surprisingly mature story, but it's also held back by weak tutorials, occasional pacing issues and an overly directionless structure. There's clearly a lot of passion behind it, and for players craving a more hardcore, systems-heavy alternative to Pokemon, this could easily become a new obsession. For others, the grind and lack of guidance may prove harder to overlook. Still, even with its flaws, Sin Eater manages to stand out in an increasingly crowded genre, and that alone makes it worth paying attention to. Monster Crown Sin Eater is out now on the Nintendo eShop, priced at $19.99 in the UK and $24.99 in the US. Big thanks as always to you all for watching, hope you enjoyed the review, and until next time.